part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Well, hello there. This is Season 2 and Episode 9 of the Ball Card Show. I'm Jason Otero.
I'm Gary LeMaster.
And this is the Sports Podcast.
For the Sports Collector.
We're happy you're here. It's a big day. It is not a normal episode for us. We're stepping a little bit outside of our normal.
Well, stepping outside of what's become our normal. Kind of back to our roots a little bit. Maybe even a little bit more in depth.
Yeah. And we're going to be talking about God's favorite sport, baseball.
Yes, sir. Should be a lot of fun.
I was trying to think of like a religious baseball joke. I'm sure there's a pun out there, like a dad joke.
I'm not aware. I don't know any.
But anyway, America's pastime, you might have heard of it, baseball.
You guys hear the energy level we're bringing to this episode? This is really bad so far.
Or as the British call it, baseball. And we are so excited. So we're going to do something a little different today. We're going to spend a little time here in a little bit on some baseball prospecting. We want to give you some players that a couple of them you've probably heard a lot about, but by and large, we try to dig a little deeper. Some people that might get some playing time, some people that might be a good investment or flip, some people that might get called up this year, and why we like them.
Yeah.
And Gary's going to use a lot of stats that are important. That's a lot of homework for me, if we're being honest.
I feel like you pulled out the new top 100 list and threw some darts and went, yeah, those guys.
Well, you're not completely wrong. But I did have, so for the record, I have a lot more names on here that I didn't choose. So I did do a little bit of homework.
Yeah.
But we're going to jump into that here shortly. Well, what else is new, man?
We were talking a little bit about some things we've picked up, something I do think we should probably do a little bit more of just on a weekly basis, because you and I both, for the most part, I don't think a week goes by where we don't pick up something.
Yeah,
we're addicted. Occasionally it does, but not often. So, tell us a little bit about what you picked up, because you found a little hole in the wall.
Yeah, so one of the things I've been doing between calls at work is trying to hit up every local card shop, and then antique malls, flea markets, mostly I look for sealed wax for that stuff, just some fun stuff to rip for cheap. But I stumbled into this antique mall, and I remember they had a lot of vintage baseball, 50s through the 70s, some high dollar cards, I think pretty much all raw. But there was a new cabinet, and I saw some 80s basketball. So I went over there, and I picked up a Fleer Dennis Rodman rookie. I think it's, Gary and I both looked at it. It's probably close to a 8 or a 9, and I spent $20 on it, so I'm not mad about that at all. And Rodman has always been one of my favorite players to watch, in life and in basketball.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's like a train wreck. You can't look away.
He was also the one growing up where it's like, do you want to be a bad sport and kick cameramans in the groins?
Yeah.
No, I don't want to be like that. I will never dye my hair. Also, Christian school basketball team. So, well, kids, if you listen to secular music, you're going to end up like Dennis Rodman.
And then everybody was like, where can we buy secular music?
Ironically enough, fun fact about Dennis Rodman, one of his favorite bands at one point was the Insiders, which is a Christian ska band. Either he liked them or he got a free T-shirt. I'm not sure. But so that was one pickup, Dennis Rodman, Fleer rookie. And then, guys, what are we doing even talking about cards that have been picked up right now? We have major news that we haven't really spent a lot of time on.
What's that?
I think we did talk about it, actually. But Tyreek Hill
we talked a lot
to Miami. In case you don't remember, the game has changed. I've always loved Tua, so I invested
He'll just be more deep incomplete passes.
I don't need your commentary right now, Gary. Your show's in a little bit when we start talking statistics and study of players. But this Tua optic, is this a purple? I think it's a purple.
It's Shock. It's the purple Shock.
Purple Shock. I mean, I couldn't pass it up. It's a beautiful card, by the way. But I'm giving Tua one last shot. And it's this year. And he's got weapons. But then my heart gets played with. The emotions I've been through whenever there's a credible, quote-unquote, credible source saying Tom Brady's going to Miami for like 2 days, I didn't know how to feel.
You're literally, and I say this, and I preface this by saying I'm not making light of this at all. You are exhibiting the behaviors of the victim in an abusive relationship.
But Tom Brady was going to be potentially coming to Miami, and I'm literally thinking, could I bring myself to buying that jersey?
Oh.
Could I? You got to understand, I loathed him for so long. And then during the Super Bowl against the Falcons where he was being a magician, I realized I'm witnessing the greatest quarterback of all time. I could no longer deny it. I still had disdain for him, but nothing like what it was. It was just, we just got bullied for so long.
Not like my wife and her absolute hatred for Tom Brady.
Or my wife and her hatred as a Peyton fan. So Tom's probably not coming, but he keeps teasing us. Like, the media says something like this that's false. He's having fun with it. He posted a tweet today that showed the 40 times for Tyreek Hill and then Jalen Waddle.
Yeah.
And then he just had his kids running around like, oh, it has nothing to do with me, you jerk. Don't. I guess what I'm saying is, don't play games with my heart. In the words of
or my wallet, as I sit on lots of Tua.
Yeah. So I got this Tua. That's the first time I bought anything since midseason last year of him on purpose. Then going over to another buy at a local card shop not far from here, I picked up a Peyton Manning Leaf Rookies and Stars rookie. It's SGC 9. Peyton is still so cheap.
Shockingly so.
He is so cheap, guys. And if you're looking for that short flip, I don't know what story could break that would change that, where overnight it's a massive, leap. But Peyton Manning is so cheap.
Time is going to do it. Yeah. Here's what you got to keep in mind with Peyton Manning. Tom Brady's the greatest ever, right? No disagreement. Everybody forgets that for about a 8-year window, because their careers basically were the same length. Brady's just played a few more years now. Manning retired. Almost everybody, for an 8-year period, thought that Peyton Manning was a superior quarterback to Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Peyton Manning stuff is roughly a tenth of the value of Tom Brady, and that's going to rectify itself at some point. It's never going to be equal.
Yeah.
But it should be no worse than half.
And that's where I think the hustle on a guy like Peyton Manning is similar to what I've got here. It's not an expensive short print rookie.
Yeah, it's a lower end card.
It's graded by a grading company that's respected, and you just pile up stacks and stacks of those, and at some point they're worth a lot more. So it's not going to have the volatility like an NBA rookie. Picked up a few other things, but those were the highlights for me. What'd you pick up this week?
I picked up really cheaply a 3-slab PSA lot. Now, they're PSA 8s, ultra modern. So, there's nothing huge here. But it was 2 Tyler Harrow rookies, one of them a colored green, and the other one just a base from Hoops Premium Stock, which is a super overprinted product, no question about it. And the other was a RJ Barrett base from the same thing. But I got all 3 slabs for $20 shipped.
Mm-hmm.
Can't beat that with a stick. Realistically, playoffs come around.
I could beat the crap out of those.
Tyler Harrow throws up a couple of 30-point games in the playoffs.
Which will happen.
And I sell them for $15 to $20 a piece all day long.
Guess what, guys? He just got halfway into a break.
Right, exactly. I picked those up. I've been picking up Cade Cavalli. We talked about a little bit last week, but I picked up a couple more of his. I picked up an of 250 refractor. I picked up a yellow of 75 first of his this week for pretty good prices. Didn't do anything wax wise. We were talking about this before we jumped on the podcast. I don't know, you guys out there listening, if you're seeing the same thing that we are, but I'm starting to see actual retail products sitting on shelves, and not for 10 minutes, but for 2 or 3 days, licensed stuff. And it boils down to this: Walmart and a lot of these places, Meijer, they have not priced things to accomplish what they wanted to accomplish. What they wanted to accomplish was pricing things at a price point that flippers weren't going to stand outside their doors for 5 hours in the middle of the night waiting for them to open to bum rush the counter.
That would never happen.
But still at a price point that the normal everyday collector would come in and buy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not buying stuff at 85% higher prices than it has been in the past. Sorry, I'm just not. And Panini has done that. Mosaic blasters, football blasters are $35 a piece. Donruss mega boxes Donruss basketball mega boxes, $65 a piece. That's asinine. And they're just sitting.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that at some point they figure it out and start pricing things accordingly, especially with the print runs where they are. But Topps has not done that.
Wishful thinking. 2 to 3 years from now, it's like the clearance 2018
baseball.
baseball.
That would be great.
That could happen. It
That
wouldn't
would
be
be
bad
great.
for there to be a lot of boxes that come back at clearance whenever. it gets a
No,
little
not
hot.
at all. Of course, their clearance will be marked up 30%.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But all right, so we picked up a little bit here and there. Anything else in the hobby? Oh, one of my favorite baseball products. It's not necessarily a value thing, but just aesthetically, I love the patches and the RPAs in this. Topps Inception is out. I will be watching a lot of those breaks. The price on this with Wander in it has really gone up, and the one-of-one's already been pulled. And I would be a little bit bummed out. The patch is nasty. It's a filthy card. And the person that hit it also has to deal with the fact that they have the one-of-one and it has a huge ding in the top left corner, which I'd be pretty bummed out about.
Still a one-of-one.
It's still one-of-one.
It's not as condition sensitive as things that you can get more of.
I mean, I'd have to cry myself to sleep on my money, but Inception's a product. The patches are really cool. And I'll say this. If you watch Inception, hear me out, because some of you are not going to like this. If you watch some Inception breaks and you really love that product, but you don't want to spend that kind of money, which I know it's not a top-end product, but people get into the hobby. If you like how those patches look, you will be shocked at what you can find with Leaf products. Their patches are so good. Leaf
Trinity is amazing.
Now, you're not getting licensed. You're not paying the same either. You're getting a good value on it. But if you are somebody that loves, and those, I'm seeing more and more people that are newer to the hobby moving into set building as the pricing is getting higher and higher. People aren't going to drop as much as they were on breaks because they're not getting as much in return on those breaks with the sealed products being so expensive. However, chasing out some, less expensive products that look really cool and building sets with them, that's a great one to go after. I was messaging a friend from college that listens to the show. Shout out, Ryan. And he was asking about products. And as I was thinking over what he was saying, I was like, but you know what? If you're just getting into it, he's wanting to rip hobby, doesn't want to spend a ton of money, wants to open something that looks cool. I'm like, it's hard to beat those products.
No, I love Leaf Trinity is one of my favorite products across sports. It's harder for me to buy unlicensed baseball product. I'm weirder about that than I am anything else, but I love that product. I mean, it's my favorite football product that comes out every year by a lot. So anyhow, that's pickups of the week. Before we dive into this stuff, because we're going to be talking baseball, everybody get your calendars out, get you a red marker, and you're ready. April 27th, 2022 Bowman releases. I'm so excited. You know me about Bowman. It's my favorite. It's my favorite.
You have converted me to more of a Bowman fan than I ever was.
It's awesome.
And so today what we want to do is just dive a little deeper into the prospecting side of things. So if you're someone that kind of likes general overview, the highlights from the week in big trade sports, if you're more of a basketball, football guy, this episode's an opportunity to learn about the greatest sport that man has been given.
I really like baseball. I don't know that I would go quite that far, but I'm strong.
Water polo?
I'm still partial to
cricket,
football, but I love baseball.
Football?
No, that's soccer.
Anyway, my favorite sport. So we're going to dive into some players, kind of give you a rundown on why we like them. Did you throw some pictures in too, or are you all hit?
I have no pictures.
Okay, I threw a couple of pictures in, and we may share more or less, but we're going to share perspective on why we think and give you some idea of what they're going for. Is it an investment worth it? So if you're somebody that takes notes, wants a few ideas, this is a good time for that. How many guys do you have?
I've got 5.
You got 5? I'll let you run a couple, and then I'll jump in.
Yeah, I was going to say, and we'll just kind of shoot it. So I'm going to start all the guys that are on my list, and I think on Jason's too. One thing that we started with here was we started with the new MLB Pipeline Top 100 list. Came out last week. In my opinion, it's not necessarily the best list, but almost all the lists have a 90% overlap. You're going to get a few guys at the bottom who fall out of one list and come in from another list. But the MLB pipeline one is what Bowman uses when it makes its top 100 subset. So that's what we went with. Everybody that we chose are guys who are either going to stick coming out of the gates in spring training or get called up by June, at least unless something crazy happens. And they're all guys who we think could have an impact both in the hobby and in the major leagues. So with that being said, we also did not include names that are obvious. So we're not going to be talking about Bobby Witt. We're not going to be talking about Julio Rodriguez. We're not going to be talking about Adley Rutschman. Those are guys that their price points are already really high, but they're also all going to be really good. Bobby Witt's going to be an absolute monster. So don't be afraid to buy his stuff. I don't know that I'd go buy his short print autos. They're insane right now. But his stuff in general, yeah, we're not talking about those guys. So I'll start. My first guy on my list is Gabriel Moreno. Now, he's a catcher. I actually have 2 catchers on my list, and we all know catchers don't get a ton of hobby love. Here's what I will say. I think that in the next 5 to 6 years, that's going to have to change because some of the best young hitters coming up right now are catchers. And sometimes those guys aren't going to stick long-term behind the plate. They'll end up in the outfield or at first or third base, which is fine. For their hobby value, it probably helps a little bit. But first guy on my list, Gabriel Moreno, Blue Jays. He's 22 years old. He's the number 7 overall prospect on the MLB Pipeline Top 100. He did just get optioned down 2 days ago to AAA, but he's going to be a June call-up. I'm not sure why they optioned him down other than service time manipulation because he was hitting really well in spring training.
You mind explaining that a little bit?
Yeah, so service time manipulation is a really, really shitty thing that baseball teams do to their prospects. The most famous example of it is Chris Bryant. Chris Bryant's rookie year in spring training, he had maybe the most prolific spring training in the history of spring trainings. He hit 9 home runs. He batted like .480, had 15 or 20 RBIs. Like, it was insane. Like, for somebody to hit 9 home runs in spring training is unheard of. They sent him down. And they sent him down for 1 game more than was necessary for him to get a full year of service time towards free agency. So he remained under team control for an extra year. They called him up literally 1 game after that deadline had passed, and it was for no reason other than to just have his rights for an extra year.
Well, what's with all these major league players getting upset with the owners?
Exactly. So I think that's a lot of what's happening with Moreno here. He is, so another few terms we'll talk about, and I'll try to, Jason, if I'm just spewing here, stop me. So Gabriel Moreno has an FV of 60. FV is a scouting term that means future value. An average major leaguer is 40. Okay. The highest that you can get on that scale is, I believe, 65. He's got a FV of 60. To give you an idea of what we're looking at here, he has a legitimate hit tool. He's going to have 25 to 30 home run, potential in-game power. His raw power is bigger than that. If he can get some of his swing and miss down, he'll be really good. He did a lot better with that last year in Double-A. So last year in Double-A, the stats that I'm going to talk about are batting average, K rate, and what's called ISO-P. A lot of people just call it ISO. I call it ISO-P because it makes more sense to me. That's isolated power average. So what that means is when a hit occurs, at what percentage of time is that hit better than a single? Okay, so that's what ISO-P means. An average major league ISO-P is 140. All right? If you're 200 or over, you are a premier level slugger. Okay, that's the Albert Pujols, the Mike Trouts, it's those guys. So Moreno's ISO-P in Double-A was 278. He had a 15% strikeout rate, and he batted .373. Like, is legitimate. Right now, we're looking at his first Bowman Chrome autos base and his just first Bowman Chrome bases. Okay, that's what we're going to look at for all these guys. We're not getting into the short prints or anything like that. Right now, you can buy his PSA 10 first Bowman auto. It was in 2020 Bowman, and there are no base firsts. He was just an auto short print. His PSA 10s are $350 to $380. You might spike a deal somewhere. You might have to pay a little bit more, but that's about where they're landing. And raw is coming in $120 to $140. My play on him right now would be to buy raw, not PSA 10. But there's nothing wrong with snagging a PSA 10. So that's my first guy. And a lot of it is not just his potential, but that lineup is so filthy that there's no place that a pitcher can hide. There's just no place that a pitcher can hide with that lineup, especially after trading for Matt Chapman. Where's a pitcher hide with that lineup? You got Teoscar Hernandez, you got Vlad, you got Bo Bichette, you got Kevin Biggio, who finally seems to have remembered how to hit, at least in spring training. It looks like that. You get this guy up there too. You still got Lourdes Gurriel Jr., who's a super underrated player. He's a 25-30 home run guy. So that lineup's filthy, and they can't pitch around him.
All right, I'm going to jump in with probably the most popular name, I would think, that's probably the most popular name that's left here, Spencer Torkelson. So I'll go ahead and jump in with that. I butchered his name, Torkelson.
Where's he at, 8 or 9 on the list? Do you remember?
It's up pretty high.
Yeah.
But he's coming in as somebody that's going to hit the ball far a lot. And there's a few different parallels that people are beginning to, a few different players are beginning to compare him to. But the one that was interesting for me was Jim Thome. And the reason for that
similar
is,
builds.
Yeah. So they're saying first base, third base, might see some third base action initially, but I think he's a first baseman. And as a first baseman, power hitter, I think that's where he should be. I'm speaking from expertise here.
Yeah.
As a collegiate athlete, I thought I'd get a little more reaction from you, but that was awkward.
Well, I mean, I okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Did you say a word there or just a sound?
It was just a sound.
Thank you for that. But one thing that has been really interesting in watching what he's been working on is you want to see the progression and you want to see growth as they move through these different levels. So from high A to triple A, what adjustments are they making? What things are they working on? And are they actually improving? Because there's a couple schools of thought. The kind of the old school minor league viewing a lot of things is just, law of averages over time. They're going to improve because they're getting so many reps. And kind of what a lot of the farm systems have believed is until somebody has thousands of reps, you don't even know what you're working with yet. You don't even have a field of data to work from. Well, with Torkelson, we're beginning to see how he works and how he thinks. And when it comes to his mindset as a player, he reminds me of Trevor Bauer. He is very cerebral. One of the things that he was kind of being encouraged to work on is placing the ball in different places around the field as a power hitter. That's a really common thing you find. A lot of guys are pull hitters or, finding an alley or a gap. But with Torkelson, he's been really working on hitting the ball opposite field. And to have a power hitter that can place the ball, I'm not saying like Ichiro, but to be able to have that kind of control and know that that's specifically what he's working on, you're beginning to see him spray the ball. That is a huge deal. When you begin thinking, the park he's going to be playing in, I think he is. I think he's going to be a 30 home run guy. The big question that you and I had in this discussion is he going to be someone that produces more than 30 home runs for the team? Not that that's a bad thing, but is he going to be an Adam Dunn? Somebody that's consistently just putting that up, tons of strikeouts, tons of home runs, not always when they matter, lower RBIs than expected for 30 home runs. So that's what we've got to figure out. I do think he's going to play, as you know, top draft pick. As you also know, not cheap to purchase. He's the most expensive player, but there's quite a range. I mean, coming up here in a little bit, I've got somebody to look at whose raw stuff is $1 to $5. But right now, 2020 PSA 10 Chrome first, not an autograph, $200, right around there. You can get a raw PSA, a raw Chrome for $20 to $30. If you move over to autos, a PSA 10 first Chrome auto, $2,500 to $3,000. This is just looking at recent comps, kind of averaging them out, ballparking it. And then a raw $600. So the question becomes, where do you go from $2,500 on a PSA 10 auto in the hobby space? When it comes to the player, I think he's going to be exciting. I think there's anticipation around him, which always affects the hobby. I think he will be able to have a pretty immediate effect on the team when he gets some playing time. But when it comes to the amount of money you're going to make off of the prospect cards,
that's
where's it going to go? Are you going to put up? Are you going to start pushing $5K?
Yeah, that's why raw is the way to go on these guys. And my concern with Torkelson is very simple, and it's if he doesn't stick at third for at least 3 or 4 years, there's one very simple question he has to answer: can he hit 280 or better? Mm-hmm. The power's going to be there.
What was last year in the 260s in the minors?
RBIs are going to be there. But if you're a first baseman who hits 30 to 35 home runs and you hit 260, you're CJ Cron. Hmm. And a lot of our audience just went, who? And there's a reason for that. CJ Cron's been an all-star. He's 30 home runs. He hits 260.
You know,
he can't get more than a 1-year deal.
I'll give you a flashier version of that.
What's that?
It's Pete Alonso.
Yeah, they're the same, and same thing.
Yeah, but there's more hobby interest there.
There is, because he's a home run derby guy.
With collectors that just started in the last few years, the fact that his first is 2020, like, you're going to see more interest on him. I think Pete Alonso is a good comparison. If he can become Pete Alonso with plate discipline, like if he can become that guy that sees the ball like that and can place and is happy with a single in the gap or a double, like, that's dangerous. At that point, it's interesting. But from the hobby perspective,
he's pretty high.
It's expensive to invest in him right now.
Yeah.
There's questions of the third base, first base. I think he sees some at-bats for sure this year. I think they're eager to get him in there.
Oh, I'll be a little bit surprised if he doesn't stick right out of spring training. They haven't optioned him yet. If they do, it'll just be for 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah. Okay. Who you got next?
I've got next Alek Thomas. Okay. Alek Thomas. His first Bowmans were in 2018 draft. Diamondbacks, he's 22. He's number 18 overall prospect. I think he probably sticks right out of spring training. He's not going to get optioned down. He's ready. Here's the thing that's crazy about Alek Thomas. He is a little dude. Like, he is a little dude. And he has some serious pop. It's fun to watch him swing because you can't mentally get your head wrapped around how somebody that's that little can hit the ball 450. You know what I mean? 450 feet.
Yeah.
He's a FV 55 guy, legitimate 30 home run potential. He'll probably be in center field to start, but whenever the Diamondbacks bring up Corbin Carroll, he'll get bumped to left field. But he's got the wheels to stay in center if they want to keep Corbin Carroll down for a while. 2021 stats, he split his time between AA and AAA. His ISOP was 251. He had a 20% K rate, which was actually an improvement from the year before. He was at like 24% the year before. Would really like to see him get that down into that 16 to 17% K rate range. And I think he's going to have to learn what you were just talking about with Torkelson. He's going to have to stop making every at-bat, a double or better or a strikeout type at-bat.
Mm-hmm.
But he did hit 325 last year. In 120-some games. So a decent sample size, and his average in the minors I don't think has ever been under 280, and it's been on a consistent rise. He's a guy whose first Bowman auto, just the base, and a PSA 10's $250 to $300. I think that's a great buy. He's a premium position player on a team with a lot of young talent that I think is going to start to make some noise again.
I agree. I think they will make some noise, yeah.
And so I think that's a really solid buy. Raw, you can pick it up for $75, $80, $90 on the high end. His base Chrome PSA 10 is $80 to $90. I'd be jumping all over that. And you can buy his base Chrome Raw for $5 to $6.
Yeah.
I've been scooping up those Raw Chromes. The Diamondbacks are a team that they have so much young talent that is starting to really come together for them. They've had pretty decent draft picks. The problem is, it's unlike a lot of teams, their guys have taken a little bit longer to mature. But like Pavin Smith finally came into his own last year. He's going to play all over the diamond. He's going to play all 3 outfield positions and some second base. Dalton Varsho is going to stick behind the plate there. He's not anything super exciting, but he's a solid major league player. And let's be honest, if you've got 8 guys, and now with the universal DH, if you've got 9 hitters you can roll out that are all no worse than a 1 to 1.5 WAR player, and you roll out a couple that are 4 to 5 guys, you're going to win 90 games. It's just the reality of it. So I like Alec Thomas a lot. He's 22 years old, and his stuff is still pretty affordable, even buying graded autos.
All right. I'm going to jump in with the next one. Probably my favorite pick out of these when it comes to the hobby side of it and the upside. It's not super risky like the next one I'm going to mention, which might be my favorite play, but it's Bryson Stott with the Phillies. So this is somebody that's been getting a lot of hype recently. There's a lot of thought that he's a shortstop, incredible range, great fielder. He's hitting 550 right now in spring training. Yeah. It's spring training. But you know who's not hitting 550?
Didi Gregorius.
Well, that or recent development, Alec Baum.
Well, Alec Baum forgot how to hit when he got to the majors. He was bad last year.
So another interesting fact is for the last couple of games, Bryson has been starting at third base.
That's interesting.
So there's what that tells me is, if nothing else, I'm not trying to speculate a ton, there's a sense of urgency to find a place to get this guy in.
Oh, on the field.
Yeah. So, and for them to bring a prospect in for spring training like this, he's doing really well. He's just super talented, all around, well-rounded player. I think he starts quickly. I think he's somebody that gets some press. I think in the hobby, he's somebody that's affordable. So just running down some numbers on him.
He's definitely a Rookie of the Year contender.
Oh, for sure.
National League Rookie of the Year contender. He's going to get the opportunity.
Last year's 26 doubles. I think he's 15 to 20, maybe 25. He's somebody that can be streaky.
He's Jonathan India.
Quit naming people as other people. He's Bryson Stott.
Okay.
He's with the Phillies. Quit doing that to the one red I have left. But I think he's going to be starting. I think he's going to bat well for average. I think he's going to be a tremendous fielder. I think he's going to be around for a long time. Bryson Stott. So some numbers for him. 2019 Bowman Chrome Draft. The PSA 10, just the base Chrome there, is $60. Raw is only $10 to $25. And we're talking somebody that's probably going to be starting for the Phillies this year, who's batting 550 in spring training, and people are excited about why is he this cheap on eBay right now? It's prospecting. This is the game. So if you move over to auto, not a lot of comps there. That's what happens. PSA 10 auto, right around 250. Some of these numbers that we're looking at with players that don't have a ton of stuff out, we're looking at short prints, base, trying to guess where we're at. But right around 250 will get you there. Bryson Stott is somebody that if you can get him now, within the next couple weeks, there will definitely be a bump. There'll definitely be a hype if he can get some at-bats, hit a couple dingers. I think that this is somebody that you could flip. And at that price, I mean, you can hold it too.
Well, that's what I was getting ready to say. He is a pure, how do I phrase this the right way? So to me, he is the best of both worlds from a hobby
balanced
standpoint.
Yes.
You can, if you want to grab stuff right now and hope that he heats up early and you can flip by the All-Star break for a 30% profit, there's nothing wrong with that. There's also a chance, and this is something that we lose track of as fans now, especially in the social media, Instagram highlights era. He's a guy who I don't think is ever going to at any point be the best shortstop or third baseman in the National League during his career. But I also think he's a guy who's never going to be outside the top 6 or 7, maybe top 10 in his league over the course of his career. If he has a 15-year career to parallel another Philly, who a lot of people think is a borderline Hall of Famer, he might be Chase Utley.
And I mean, I'm trying to think of what other cities. City of New York could be like this, but they're not as loyal because they trade a lot and because of the Steinbrenner era of just
Philadelphia Phillies fans are big.
The Phillies fans
fanatically
are always looking for a hero.
Yeah.
And I love that about their fan base. I really do. Deeply loyal. So if you have a young guy come in that shows that he has the stuff, the city of Philadelphia is going to promote what you're holding.
Oh, yeah.
I would say this, my opinion. If you're doing the long hold, spend the $250, get the auto that's graded high, something short print. It doesn't have to be. You can go with a cheaper option, but if you're going to hold it long term,
Buy a couple, flip one, hold one.
Yep, exactly. Get that 30% and mitigate
Yeah.
your risk a little
You
bit.
got it.
Ugh, I don't want to talk too much. Like, this is the only thing I don't like about prospecting because it turns
get
into a
deep.
lot of these
Yeah.
other podcasts that just are basically day trading and
Yeah.
Bitcoin and sneakerheads, which is nothing wrong with it. But that's what this one's about. So,
Yeah. I mean, we did have a lot of people say they were excited about this episode.
all right,
so.
hey, we're at like this could be a long one.
Yeah,
based
it
off what
is.
We're doing.
We're,
You jump in.
almost halfway through. So my next guy, and we talked a little bit about service time manipulation. This is the most blatant case of service time manipulation that I've seen since Chris Bryant. O'Neal Cruz, Pirates. They just sent him down. He's the second best, maybe the best player in the entire organization, including the major leagues. Brian Reynolds is a really good player, and he's got a track record. So people will say Brian Reynolds is probably better. But physically and tool-wise, Brian Reynolds isn't even on the same planet as O'Neal Cruz. This guy is a freak show. If you're not familiar with O'Neal Cruz, go to YouTube right now and look this dude up. He is 6'7". He's got arms that reach from, we're in Ohio. He reaches from Columbus to Cincinnati. His raw power is 80-80. Like, he's a monster. His in-game power is close to that, like 60-80. He is a monster. And he's a shortstop, and he has stuck at shortstop. Everybody's like, no, he's going to have to move to left field or right field. No, this dude has range. He's got an arm. He's a beast. And the Pirates just sent him down. And I guarantee you they will call him up one day after he loses a year of service time. I guarantee it.
Well, you look at that. You look at this year's draft picks, some of their early prospects. Like, how is it that this city has so consistently drafted such high level of talent?
And get rid of him because they don't want to pay him.
Yeah.
They don't care. They're not trying to win.
Beautiful park.
Yep. It's a
Beautiful
great game.
setting.
Great city to go to a baseball game in. It's a beautiful park.
First place, so back in the day, PNC Park, I don't know if it's even still called
It
that,
is.
but PNC Park was the first time I saw people have wings at the baseball game. And
You were like, where do I get those?
partook.
So O'Neal Cruz, FV60, he's just a freak show. This is his 2021, and this was AA and AAA combined. And then he got a call up to the bigs in September. He hit 2 home runs in 5 games, and one of them was on a changeup from Sonny Gray that dropped about a foot under his knees, and he hit it 450. Just absolutely annihilated it. He batted 315 was his average. His ISOP was 260 in AAA and AA most of that time in AAA. He did have a 22% K rate. A big dude like that with long arms, pitchers will be able to take advantage of him a little bit inside if he lets them. If he tries to hit everything out of the park, so he'll struggle there a little bit. His stuff is not cheap, so. Baseball guys, baseball prospectors have known about this dude for a couple years. The average fan probably doesn't or hasn't. His first Bowman Chrome was in 2016. Autos in a PSA 10 are going to be $650 to $750. Still nowhere near Spencer Torkelson, and I would argue that from a hobby standpoint, Cruz has much more potential than Torkelson does in the hobby. He plays a much more premium position, and he's going to be flashy. He's going to be one of those dudes that is much must-see TV. Raw, you can get his autos for $120 to $140. Keep in mind, if you're buying raw, 2016 Chrome was notorious for bad centering. So just keep that in mind. If you're buying to grade, make sure you look at it close.
That's a pro tip right there, by the way.
Yeah. There's certain years
That's
that
a
it's
free
tough.
one for all your years.
2018, 2019, really good on centering. His base Chrome PSA 10 non-auto is $250 to $300, and raw is about $30 to $40. The raws until a month ago were $10 to $12. I bought a few then. I don't know how much of a buyer I am at $30 to $40. If I didn't have any, I might be, but I have a few. He's 23 years old. He's number 26 overall prospect. He will be up by the end of April. So, O'Neal Cruz.
All right, this next one's my dark horse.
All right.
This is my dart on the list.
Okay.
And it was kind of a dart until I did a little bit of digging.
Is it a pitcher or a hitter?
It's a hitter. It's the last hitter, and then we'll do a couple pitchers.
Okay.
I know we don't get super excited about that in the hobby, but we should get a little more than we are.
I talked about Kate Cavalli last week.
The way to do well on pitchers is to prospect them. I'll tell you
100%, and then hold them.
Yeah, hold them.
Yep.
So I want to talk about Stephen Kwan with the Guardians.
Okay, now he doesn't have any Bowman firsts yet.
No, nothing out there. But
He's
what he does have is a ridiculously high contact rate, like absurdly high.
Is it like a flash contact rate, or has it been sustainable over a few years?
Sustainable over a few years. So
Okay.
2 years ago, 86%. In AAA, 92% contact rate.
That's silly.
It's filthy high.
How old is he?
Good question. I'll pull that up. Why don't you pull that up? While I'm
Okay,
talking about
I'll
it?
pull it up while you're talking about
But
it.
the Guardians keep stacking talent around their system, and here's why I think Stephen Kwan's an interesting one for the hobby. I think this is 1,000% more of a short-term investment. It's a fun way to prospect somebody. I don't think he'll have a.
He's 24. He's a little
He's
bit
24.
older.
Okay,
He's a little bit
24, 92%. But he's not, by design, he is not going to be a big home run guy. He's not going to hit a lot of those. I don't think he's super fast. But you know what he can do? He's going to put the ball in play a lot. All the time he's going to do that.
Yeah, he's not a home run hitter by any stretch.
So here's what I think is big about that. When you have somebody that, 90% of the time, like he's been around 85 to 95 on contact rate, putting the barrel on the ball, you're going to have people throwing the ball hard. Your exit velocity, he could be hitting in the 90s on that. Like, he's going to have a good batting average. He's going to be a player that can drive in runs. He's going to be a producer. And
Where are they going to hit him at? 6, 7, or 2?
I think it'll be it'll be somewhere in that fit. It'll be early in that lineup if there's enough speed. I didn't get to see enough on him on that. If not, he's going to be just after the middle of the lineup to drive in some runs.
Yep.
But what's exciting about somebody like that is they are valuable not only to the Guardians, but they're valuable to a lot of organizations to have somebody like that early on. And I think that's the kind of person that either one gets playing time quickly or is traded quickly to force to a position where he will get playing time. If he is putting the ball in play 92% of the time, he's probably a 300 hitter.
Well, I think it looked like last year he was 337 across two levels.
I think he's consistently going to be a 300 hitter. I think he's going to be a guy where his Bowman Chrome first raw is going to be between $1 and $5. I think not a lot of people are going to grade it early.
Probably will be out in 2022 Bowman when it comes out here in 3 weeks.
Yep. I think this is somebody that, in my opinion, I'm going to snag up 10 or 15 of these guys and see what happens. There's
he's
low
a guy you
risk.
can probably grab his colors pretty cheap early on.
Yep. Get short print. So this is a guy that I think is going to see playing time soon and is going to be valuable to whatever organization he's in.
Yeah. So, the good one. That's a guy who we don't have any card data for because he doesn't have any yet. But
watch him.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, YouTube is so unreal so baseball prospecting, even 10, 15 years ago, these scouts had to go to the games all the time. And still at the high level that's happening. But just being able to post stuff on video, the angles that you get of somebody's swing on YouTube, it's unreal. You can just see it. And so it's not easy to touch a bat to a ball 92% of the time with professional baseball players.
Right. At any level.
At any level. But when you see high A at like 80-some% and then triple A at 92, there's a field of data there that says this guy is going to have a chance every time he's at the plate. And if you have runners on base, I'll put that guy in there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, Stephen Kwan, I'm not saying this is going to be somebody that's ever even pulling the $2,500 Torkelson money. Don't hear me wrong. I think this is somebody that could be a fun way to try this out if you haven't prospected. That could be somebody to get in this year on him and see what happens. Watch him for a year, watch him for a couple years, and see what happens with his stuff.
Absolutely. My next guy is my other catcher on my list.
Two catchers.
Two catchers on my list. And that's why I made the statement, catchers don't get a lot of hobby love, but...
Not since Piazza.
Even then, Piazza's a Hall of Famer. You can buy his stuff for nothing.
Ivan Rodriguez, Pudge.
His is a little bit more expensive, and I think part of that is he was very culturally significant too.
I mean, how far back do we go before a hobby has a bench? Gary Carter?
You can buy their rookie stuff for nothing.
Which, by the way,
Hall
side
of
note,
Famers.
Johnny Bench, your penmanship.
Oh, he's got some beautiful.
It's
beautiful
calligraphy.
Autos. Yeah, he's got some beautiful autos. His Topps Transcendent autos the last 2 or 3 years have just been gorgeous. Yeah. Total side.
My birthday's in October, listeners.
So we were talking about the Royals earlier. This is another Royals prospect, right? MJ Melendez. Okay, he's 22 years old. He's the number 51 overall prospect. He was not ranked last year. Okay, so he made the jump from probably in the 200 to 300s to number 51. Part of that's because he hit 41 freaking home runs last year in the minors across Double and Triple A. He's a FV55 player. Raw power is crazy. His glove has come around. Probably stick at catcher for a while. He's a legit 275 to 280 major league hitter, and he's going to hit 25 to 30 home runs if he's healthy. He's just that good. His ISOP was 312. That's crazyville. Crazyville. 30% of the time he made contact with a baseball in play, it was for more than one base. That's nuts. Absolutely nuts. He did have a 21.5% K rate. He hit 283. His stuff is not cheap. 2017 Bowman Chrome was his first.
You know how old he is?
How what?
How old he is?
22.
22.
He's 22.
Did you just tell us that already?
Yeah. His PSA
I've been
10s,
listening really close.
His PSA 10s are $375 to $400, and an auto raws are $100 to $110. His base chrome, there's no sales history for a PSA 10. There aren't any. I looked back a year. There's nothing out there in a PSA 10. Raw, $8 to $10. I would be snagging those things all day long because he's a dude who's going to hit and he's going to hit a lot. If he doesn't stick out of camp, he'll be a June call up, probably end up with 300 to 400 at bats if that happens. And he's going to do a lot with those at bats. He's looked good in spring training. He's a guy, because his firsts were in 2017 and then he was an under the radar guy for a while. A lot of his stuff is probably sitting in people's commons boxes and dollar boxes. He's a guy that if you go, here's another pro tip. Card shops and guys who set up at card shows, do not go through their $1 and $2 and $3 boxes and reprice things every month or two.
No.
You will find stuff that hasn't been repriced in 5 years. Sometimes that's to your benefit. Sometimes it's to your detriment. But this is a guy you can probably find if you do some digging in dollar boxes.
And find the box that has Bowman in it.
Yeah.
Because that's where you're going to see the best potential for those gains on.
Absolutely. He's a guy that I'm really high on. Again, a lot of that's lineup related. The Royals have some real young talent between Nick Prado and Bobby Witt and those guys. It's legitimate. There's not going to be too many holes in that lineup. So, who's next on your list?
I want to talk about a pitcher.
Okay.
This is another dark horse. This is a fun game to play. This is what's fun about prospecting. You literally could pick a top 100 list, pick out 5 random names, pick out 5 random numbers, and just do a little digging and see what you find.
Yeah.
And you're going to find things that are good and things that are bad about him. And that's kind of what you have with Joe Ryan with the Twins.
And he looks like a 70s porn star, too, by the way.
Well,
there's a big old shaggy mustache.
I was born in 1985. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, though. Joe Ryan cracks me up. Though. He's a goofy-looking dude.
Goofy-looking dude. He's not going to throw the ball fast. MLB
Neither
standards.
did Greg Maddux.
But you know what he is going to do? He's going to throw a fastball that drops about 4 inches. Now, for perspective.
Is it a two-seamer?
That's a good question. I'm assuming so.
It'd
be really hard to do that with a four-seamer.
Yeah, that's how I was like, oh.
But to have that kind of movement on your fastball and slider, it's still coming in at 90, 92. You know, he's not hitting numbers like the next guy I'm going to talk about. But movement like that is, especially if you can place that is so hard to hit that ball.
Well, especially if you've got a four-seamer to go with it that doesn't drop 4 inches and it looks the same coming out of your hand.
Or the slider that's going to move away.
Yeah.
You're going to get that same movement to run outside the zone or almost break in on the batter and pinch them if they're trying to pull. So I think Joe Ryan is somebody that's interesting to take a look at. The type of movement he has is something that is special for programs, similar to what I was talking about with Stephen Kwan. So with baseball, More so than I mean, in every sport they do it, but baseball is probably the nerdiest major sport. Is that fair to
Yeah.
say? So there are people that are looking for a guy like him. Is he going to be an ace? No, I don't think that's where it's headed. I do think he's somebody that will have high value for a program. They're looking for somebody that can be that disruption.
Is he going to be a starter or is he going to be a middle relief guy? Because from a hobby standpoint, that's a big difference.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's going to depend on how it plays out with the program that he's in, and then potentially where he may end up. I think he'll stay for a little bit, but that kind of movement. Just think about it. If you're throwing a ball a low strike, you know how hard it is to drive a ball that is halfway between your knee and your feet.
Unless you're O'Neal Cruz, it's really
Well,
tough.
or you are, who's going to do well with that is the Torkelsons that golf it out of there. But by and large, you throw that thing away, or it's a slider and you think it's a fastball.
You just look stupid swinging at it.
You're going to drive the ball into the ground and set up a lot of double plays. That's
Yeah.
somebody. So that's where middle relief might make more sense with
Yeah.
that kind of movement. But we'll see what happens with him. But I think Joe Ryan's interesting. So a little bit of data on the card investment. 2020 Bowman, raw $1 to $5.
Chromes, right? Yeah.
Yep. Raw chromes $1 to $5. PSA 10. Found a couple between $25 and $35.
Yeah.
That's a fun game to play for $25 to see what happens. Autos, 25 to 35 raw. Now, auto PSA 10. The only one I found was a sapphire. Somebody's really into him if they bought a PSA 10 sapphire. I think it was so it was a PSA 10 sapphire pop 3 157. I couldn't even find just the base auto on
That's
that.
somebody buying pop. Not player.
It might have been Joe Ryan.
Yeah, it's somebody buying pop, not players. What that
Joe
is.
Ryan might have bought all three of those.
Which,
so.
when it comes to pitchers, isn't the worst move you can make. Like, people forget pitchers at the major league level rarely come in as a rookie and are monsters. They take 2 or 3 years to develop into a frontline starter.
People get bored with pitchers. You want me to just go ahead and finish up and then you run the last two?
Yeah, that's fine because I got one on my list, and then I'm going to give one little bonus guy that's not going to get a call up this year, but I'm real
So
big on.
I'm going to go ahead and run in. This is the only there's not a ton to say about him, but I still think it's somebody worth watching. It's Hunter Green with Cincinnati Reds. Hunter Green throws fireballs. He had a strikeout last week, clocked in at 101. We've seen him throw harder than that.
He's touched 104.
He's touched 104. Hunter Green throws the ball really hard. You know what else is going on in Cincinnati? Absolutely nothing.
Oh, it's so bad.
And here's what I know as a Cincinnati Reds fan. They're going to find anything they can to hype, and it's probably just going to be the radar gun. So selfishly, from a hobby standpoint, don't be surprised if you're seeing a lot of clips, some Sports Center stuff. Like Hunter Green is going to be hitting over 100 miles an hour. He's going to be getting some time. Cincinnati needs a hero, and they're going to settle.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking down to Hunter Green. I'm just saying when you look at everything else they've done, gutting the team and basically giving up the next 5 to 7 years, I think that this is somebody worth taking a look at. 2018 Chrome first raw is only $10. A PSA 10 is $30. When it came to autos, I found a PSA 9 to $499. Graded was $250, and then just a base auto, a base chrome auto, right around $150. But Hunter Green throws the ball so hard. Cincinnati doesn't have any other stories to tell this year. You're going to see them pushing his content, and so hobby, volatility standpoint, all those type of things. Hunter Green's one where probably this year you could see a good bit of a bump on that.
Yeah, and I was surprised when you start going over some of the sales numbers. He's pretty pricey for a pitcher.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that. I hit some stuff on breaks this year. Autos, gold lava to like 50. Nobody's touching. Nobody's interested.
It's not his first.
But when you hit triple digits,
yeah,
people are looking. And I think this is completely speculative off of what I think Cincinnati media is going to do. But I think Hunter Green's somebody that gets a lot of attention this year. And I think he's good. And I think that's going to help it. So I decided to throw a couple pictures in. That's not super common.
What's he selling for? What are his sales numbers?
Did you listen at all to what I just said?
Did you give the sales numbers?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, I missed them completely.
Just like the age. You want me to read them back to you?
You were ignoring me earlier.
Well, I'm enjoying this moment.
Okay.
Chrome Raw, 2018,
Yeah.
about $10.
Okay. Cool.
Write that down.
No.
PSA 10's $30.
Yeah, that's solid. I would jump on that.
And then there was only short print graded for like
Autos.
$250 as a 9. That was to $4.99, and then Otto's like $150 raw. So he's somebody I would, if I'm doing it on that one, I do a PSA 10 at $30. I do a couple of them and then a couple of raw. I'm not going super heavy on any pitcher, but I think he'll be fun to watch. So that's the end of mine. Let's hear your last couple.
All right. So my last guy that I think is going to be up this year and make an impact is number 94 overall in the top 100. That is criminally low for this guy. This is a guy who defies what traditional scouts think is going to happen when they look at a body type or an athleticism thing. And that's Miguel Vargas. He's a Dodgers prospect.
He's got those John Daly genetics.
He does. He's 22. He's got a little belly.
You can't pull fat.
A little paunchy. All the dude does is hit.
Hit dingers.
All he does is hit, man. And it's not like he's just pure power. He just hits. So, I mean, he's an FV 45, which is insane to me. He should be a 50 to 55 FV player. He's developed legitimate power. His ISOP last year was 210, but he only had a 16% K rate. He hit 318 across 2 levels. Most of the year was in high A and double A. I think he'll start this year in double A, probably get moved to triple A real fast, and then get a June or July call up is my guess. The first time the Dodgers have like one of their utility guys get dinged a little bit, he's going to get pulled up because he can play 3 spots in the infield. He can play first, second, and third. He's not a shortstop. His stuff is pretty affordable right now. His first Bowman is in 2020 Bowman baseball. His autos in a PSA 10 are going for $240 to $270. Raw, they're $80 to $100. His base chrome PSA 10, $60 to $80. You can buy them raw all day for $5 or $6. Again, all that the kid does is hit. Every stop he's ever been at, he hits, and he's just going to keep doing it.
Would I sell that auto to you for like $10, $15?
Oh, just out of platinum?
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a Bowman
card,
first. It was a cool card. Yeah, it was like, I think I paid $10 or $12 for it. I've been buying his stuff. If any of you follow us on social media or on Facebook, you've probably seen me make posts where I'm buying Miguel Vargas because I am. I think that if for some reason he doesn't get called up this year, I'll be shocked when they do the updated top 100 list at the All-Star break. I'm willing to bet large amounts of money he's in the top 50. He's the real deal. The other guy that I'm real high on, he's young. He's a guy you're going to take a little bit of a flyer on. This is true prospecting, but he's a hitter. He's not going to get a major league call up till probably 2024 would be my guess. Maybe 2023 if he makes a big rise this year, but I think 2024 is most likely. Another Indians prospect. Name is Petey Halpin. Jason, when I said that, was like, who? What? Petey Halpin. He's 19.
That's like a 1950s baseball name.
Yeah. He's 19 years old. Last year in single A ball in Lynchburg, he was 2.5 years younger than the average age in the league. He was legit. He was not an in-game power kid, but he's got some raw power. He hit almost 300. He hit 294. He stole 11 bases. This was in 54 games. He stole 11 bases. So that's, a 35 to 40 stolen base guy on a full season. His OPS was solid. It was about 800 almost. His on-base percentage, which is what I look at a lot too, was 363, which is really good. He slugged 425, not fantastic. His ISOP wasn't great either, but he was 19 playing high A baseball, 2.5 years younger than the league average. I'm really interested to see what he does this year. You can buy his stuff pretty affordably. He was in 2020 draft. And he was drafted in the 3rd round, by the way. But he's in 2020 draft. You can pick up his autos raw for $15 to $20, graded for probably $100. And he's a guy that I've been grabbing when I can. So that's our prospect rundown, the guys that we think could make some impact this year in the majors that aren't the big names that everybody's talking about. Hopefully you guys get some good information there and at least get your gears turned. Even if you don't decide that these are guys you want to jump into, I really, really recommend, especially if you are at all numbers oriented, prospect research is fun.
Yeah, the other thing prospecting does is it's similar to when you join a fantasy league.
Yeah, a little bit.
Against your, like this year, my dad has me jumping in a baseball league. I haven't done a lot because baseball fantasy is a lot more time consuming with the pitching and the schedules and 1 billion games a season. But it kind of forces you to pay a little more attention, and then you find yourself enjoying those things in the game. So, definitely hop in, pick some names, look through the top 100 and find your favorite team and pick the 5 players and follow them. Don't buy anything or buy a bunch of it. It's whatever you want to do, but it gives you an insight. This is one of the things I love about baseball compared to other sports is the way you can follow the development of players as they're going into that. You have college football, college basketball. Obviously, that's a thing, but it's so isolated and siloed in baseball that I think that's what makes baseball just a little more special, in my opinion.
And it's so much more of a it's harder to miss on guys in baseball than it is in any other sport. It's also easier to miss on guys in baseball than in any other sport. There are certain statistical indicators that if a guy grows in those statistical indicators throughout his minor league career and it doesn't take him 7 years to do it, that you're not going to miss too often if you know what to look for. And then there's guys who might hit 30 home runs one year in the minor leagues or get called. Aristides Aquino gets called up 2 years ago and in a little bit over a month and a half hits 19 home runs, and everybody's like, oh my God.
They maybe buy a lot of
and
his
then
cards.
Pitchers went, oh, hey, when he was in the minors, when people threw him curveballs, he looked like an idiot. Let's do that.
And that's what and the big difference there. I want to be defensive of him, but I can't be. Players like Torkelson, are making adjustments now.
Yes, they're working on that, not counting on raw power.
And I don't think Aquino's not, but it's like the ones that you watch for are actually making those strides, and they're making them faster than everybody else.
Yes.
That's what you want to see.
Yep.
I can't hit the ball opposite field. Now I'm spraying the ball in all the gaps.
Yeah.
That's a huge deal for a power hitter. That's why he's expensive. But again, that's the balance between just prospecting, and then you bring hobby into it, and it's like, well, they're expensive, and what's the flip? So jump in, have some fun with it. As always, just a quick reminder, I didn't say it earlier, we are a part of the Press Play Podcast Network. Tons of great content. If you haven't checked out the other shows, the other podcasts, especially right now, a lot's going on in the city of Cleveland, and there's a lot of Cleveland-heavy podcasts in there. Baseball, football, basketball, tons of stuff going on. So take a look at it. There's a little bit of gossip, what in the world's going to happen in Cleveland. There's very polarizing opinions. So I know for a fact there's some very intriguing content available there. So check it out, Press Play Podcast Network. I think this is the end, right? Are we done?
I don't have anything else.
This might be the nicest we've been to each other.
Well, it's because we were so focused on the actual content
We
and
actually
not
had
on
to pay
roasting each
attention.
other.
Next week,
We'll be
that's
back to
gonna change.
roasting each other
hey,
for sure.
Thanks so much for checking us out. This is the Ball Card Show, the sports podcast.
For the Sports Collector.
Bye.
Peace.